Our featured guest tonight has been at the forefront of the rock world ever since his band Jackyl exploded onto the national stage with two back-to-back platinum-selling records in their self-titled debut and then sophomore album Push Comes to Shove. From collaborating with ACDC's Brian Johnson to crafting acclaimed solo records to reality television, liquor, and too many other interests to list, he's done it all and seen it all. Here to chat about his incredible life and career and brand new album, Breathing Fire, is none other than Jesse James Dupree. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hello, my brother. Thank you for having me.
So, Jesse, by the time you came onto the national stage, it was obvious to everyone rock and roll was your true love. But I'm curious how rock and roll became your true love. How did it originally enter your life? What kind of music filled your family home? Was it rock or something else?
My dad lost his job whenever I was like 12 years old. And he worked at Lockheed Aircraft. Lockheed, they build all the military airplanes and such. And he didn't have a 10th grade education. So when he lost his job, he sold everything we had, including my bicycle. And we moved to Gadsden, Alabama, and we moved into a little mobile home trailer in the back of an asphalt parking lot. And my dad bought a little cafe that he couldn't even boil water, but he bought a cafe. And he and my mom started running that little cafe. And all the truck drivers that used to haul steel from the steel plant in Gadsden would come in there and eat lunch and dinner. And there was a jukebox in that cafe. And so I got exposed to everything from the Rolling Stones, Deep Purple, Grand Funk Railroad, James Brown, and my favorite was Joe Tex. You remember? So Joe Tex had the best soulful scream voice. He had a song, I got you.
Oh, like James Brown.
Now, didn't. Huh?
Like James Brown.
Yeah, but he had a better scream than James. Wow! I mean, he was just great. But that's where I learned how to what I call power up, and was those guys. But I used to fill we had the dill pickles came in a 5-gallon bucket for the put on the hamburgers in the restaurant, and when they would empty those out, I would wash them out. And when the guy would change the 45s out on the jukebox, he would give them to me. So I kept my 45s in that pickle bucket. And I'd go back in the back of that mobile home trailer and imitate singing all those incredible bands, like say from Grand Funk and the Rolling Stones to James Brown and Otis Redding and Joe Tex.
You know, you speak glowingly of the history of rock and what it's meant to you and your life. What was it originally that drew you into that world when you were just a kid discovering it? Was it that jukebox experience, or was there something else? Was there a show you went to? Was there something that just went, okay, this is what I want to do?
It was mainly, my uncle. My uncle, he never had success in the music business, but he wrote parts of songs. And my whole young life, he would be the life of a party, and he would get up and sing his parts of his songs, and some of which I went ahead and finished out. And
wow.
So there's a song called "Secret of the Bottle" on the second Jackyl album that we play it live every night, and people sing every word to it. But the bulk of that song my uncle had written, and I just finished out the verses and the chorus. But it was just being around him. And my mom used to wake me up in the middle of the night to watch, Johnny Carson with, Little Richard would be on there, or Frank Sinatra would be on there, or maybe even Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise or something crazy, But my mom always kind of put me in front of the television set to watch these great entertainers, and I think it just rubbed off.
Now, a band which has played a profound part in your story is ACDC. And within that band, Brian Johnson specifically, do you remember the moment you heard ACDC's Back in Black for the first time? And how did that happen?
I do. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't remember that, right? One night, I'll tell you a story. One night, Brian and I went to a festival together. And the singer for ACDC, he and I, we rode up in he had a brand new Aston Martin, and it was the most badass car. And he had parked that Aston Martin out away from the backstage area because it was a beautiful car. He didn't want people dinging up against it, And we had been at the festival for a good bit of the day. I'd actually received a plaque from the radio station because Jackyl was the most played band that year on that station down in Tampa. And so he looked at me at a certain point. He said, it's getting a little bit late. Why don't we head back to the house and get something to eat? Because he lives down there. And he goes, why don't we head back to the house and get something to eat and have some drinks? I said, okay, let's go. So we got in the car and we were starting to leave, and Brian was driving this badass Aston Martin, and he cranked it up, and these kids come running across the field, and one of them had their Back in Black CD. And he rolled his window down, and they said, hey, can we please get you to sign this, Brian? Thank you. And he signed it, and he's such a gentleman. And he goes, hey, I got Jesse, the singer of Jackyl here. He should sign it too. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not worthy to sign a Back in Black album, And but he's such a great guy. And he gave the kids the CD, and they ran off happy. And he sat there and he stared off into the distance for a few minutes. And we were just sitting in that car, and it was sitting there idling. And I didn't know if something was wrong. I didn't know, because he just sat there and stared for me. And he says, he said, I've never understood the autograph thing. Where did that come from that people would want your signature? And I said, well, maybe for me, in Jackyl or any other band, I could see that. I said, but everybody knows where they were when Elvis died. Everybody knows where they were the day that somebody stepped the first step on the moon, or everybody knows where they were, all these momentous times, And I said, everybody knows where they were the first time they heard Back in Black. And I said, so, I can understand why they would, why that's a thing for you. And he went, and then we drove off. But, he didn't think nothing else about it. But, yeah, it's crazy. I was in Roanoke, Virginia, and the club had a DJ, and we were in between breaks. I was playing in a bar band. And the guy came on and said, here's the new ACDC. And he played it. And I was like, oh, my God. And, they changed everything.
And it's my understanding that, in your younger days, you actually camped out for like 2 nights to get Back in Black tour tickets. Is that true?
Yeah, I used to camp out for 2 nights to get Back in Black tickets, or to get any concert tickets. But back then, that's what you had to do. You go down to the mall and you'd start a list, and people would show up and they would put their name on the list, and then you lined up the morning that the tickets went on sale in order of that you were on the list. And but yeah, so to go from camping out for 2 nights to get front row tickets all the way to where I'm beside him in the studio singing songs together, it was it's a big honor. And it doesn't, I still have to remind myself that it actually happened, because it's like one of those, something out of a movie, right?
And well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you look back at that specific moment in time. I mean, there you are, a young kid looking up to the stage at Brian Johnson and ACDC. There, Brian Johnson is looking out into the crowd with you in it, the future lead singer of Jackyl and his future collaborator. I mean, it's another one of those moments where it's almost as if there's a screenwriter somewhere writing the story.
Yeah, stuff like that, just you wouldn't think it happens, but I've been very blessed. And the same thing happened. My son came to me in my office and at the house. He said, hey, Dad, guess who's in the studio? And I said, who's that? And there's always somebody in the studio. I mean, Travis Tritt records in there, and Skid Row records in there, and just a bunch of different people's recorded in the studio. Izzy Stradlin, the guys from Georgia Satellites and stuff like that. And he goes, guess who's in the studio? And I said, who? And he said, it's DMC from Run DMC. I went, oh, cool. And he goes, he wants you to come in and say hey to him. And D and I struck a friendship, and we've been friends ever since, and we've collaborated together. And so both DMC and Brian Johnson, both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and both of them had landmark albums that changed music and the course of things. And so again, very, very blessed to have been, I'm scared to stop thinking about it too much, because I'm not finished yet. I think there's still some more to happen.